G'day trendsetters, I'm John with Gravel Cyclist and I'm coming to you today with another no bullshit review. This time around I present my long-term review of SRAM's eTap AXS Force Wide electronic drivetrain with hydraulic disc brakes. If you're a regular to the gravelcyclist.com website or Gravel Cyclist YouTube channel, you'll already have seen my video where I showed all of these parts up close and personal and weighed every single one of them. The frame and fork that has been containing this group set, the Rebel Cycle CGR SL, and my two-part build video of this group set and this frame conducted by my good mates at Brickyard Bike Company in Phoenix City, Alabama. All of those videos are linked in the description below, including, I forgot to mention, the Zip 303S wheel set. That too you can see below. SRAM revolutionized electronic shifting with a completely wireless drivetrain, including the front derailleur, ever since they launched their original version of SRAM eTap. Since that time, the company has gone on to refine the system, including the addition of a 12th gear, which in itself required the development of a special cassette body to fit that 12th gear. If you've never seen eTap, there are no physical cables attaching the shifters to the derailleurs. Both shifters contain a CR2032 coin cell battery that wirelessly communicate to the front and rear derailleurs. Each derailleur has its own rechargeable lithium-ion battery, which is very simple to remove, recharge and replace. Overall, eTap is a system that comprises of 4 batteries, and you can typically expect a run life of about 1,000 miles or about 1,600 kilometers, but that's obviously going to depend on where you live. The front derailleur uses considerably more juice versus a comparable shift on the rear derailleur, but you can expect pretty amazing battery life out of the shifter batteries. I have an original eTap setup, and that is an 11-speed system. Those batteries in that particular system are 4 years of age and they're still going strong. I'll cover some battery life factoids. You can use the super handy AXS app to interrogate the system. You can check on battery life. You can see the battery status of the rear derailleur right there. You can also configure shifting controls. So in this example, I can switch around which controller does what in terms of shifting the rear derailleur up and down or the front derailleur, etc. And this other handy feature, I can configure the multi-shift. That's with multiple gear shifts at one time by holding down the shift paddle. The other thing that's kind of wild and crazy about this system is you can update the firmware. Who would have ever thought you'd see that in a shifting system? So in this example, the rear derailleur, new firmware available. So let's tap that, install. So it's wirelessly connecting to the rear derailleur to make its magic happen. Well, mind you, I have to press the access button that says on the component first. Let's go do that. And there we go. Installing firmware to version 2.7.3. The other really cool thing about this app is if you've got multiple bikes, like in my case, I've got review bikes from the past, they are stored under your user profile. Very handy indeed. This latest iteration of SRAM eTap Force AXS is intended as a 2x system, but you could hypothetically run it as a 1x system if so desired. The system lives in a perpetual state of readiness, meaning there is no on-off switch. Rather, the system goes into sleep mode after 30 seconds of inactivity. But this doesn't mean while you're coasting along, slacking off, that the system's going to stop shifting gears altogether. Basically, the system is looking for movement in the bike, whether that be simply moving your crank back and forth, a full rotation, or tapping one of the shifter buttons. I've never had the system go to the point where I go to shift gear and there's nothing. It always shifts gears every time I've been riding the bike, so there's nothing to worry about there. But it's good to know that SRAM built this energy conservation mode into the drivetrain. Now it's time to talk about how the shifting works, how it's performed, and how the rest of the drivetrain components have worked as well. And that includes the cranks, brakes, and cassette, all of which makes up the complete eTap AXS Force Wide system. In my opinion, eTap is the most logical system out there. Out of the box, the right side paddle shifter will shift to a harder gear down the cassette, and the left side paddle shifter will shift to an easier gear up the cassette. You press both paddle shifters at the same time to actuate the front derailleur. Both pedals to shift the front derailleur up, and both pedals again to shift the front derailleur down. These shift levers are comfortable, but not up to the crazy ergonomic comfort factor of the Shimano GRX Di2 shift lever, but good enough to cause me no pain, numbness, or annoying hot spots. I seldom use gloves, and I've racked up a ton of miles on this system. The reach adjustment can be tweaked to cater to people with smaller hands, and there's no confusion about which shift function you are performing with a single pedal shifter on either side of the bike. It doesn't matter if you have no gloves or heavy winter gloves. Super easy to actuate, and the buttons can easily be reached from the hoods or the drops. You can see how these shifters are paired to their respective derailleurs in their build video linked in the description below. Every time you execute a gear shift, the corresponding derailleur lights up with its LED, which is indicative of battery life. The shifter also triggers an LED, again indicative of battery life. The rear derailleur does have a stall condition check of sorts. By that I mean if you trigger up to 4 gear shifts and don't pedal the bike, the system will continue to make those shifts until the 4th one is made. Then the derailleur will no longer shift in that direction. Most people aren't going to make this error, but it is something to be careful of if you transport the bike, especially if you sometimes lay your bike inside of the car in a haphazard manner, as I often do. Unlike other electronic shifting systems, SRAM eTap AXS Force does not have a trim function on the front derailleur. However, if you use the alignment block as seen in the build video linked below, there is no derailleur rub anywhere on any gear, big or small chainring. I had to perform this part of the demonstration with the AXS button on the front derailleur. I need 2 hands to actuate the front derailleur shift. So push the button there, drops to the small chainring. Shifting speed is good and reliable. And as always, I never shift any front derailleur under load. Front derailleur battery clearance is markedly improved on this iteration of eTap, up to 700C by 45mm or 650B by 2.1 inches. Some of that will have to do with your bike's chainstay length, but as you can see from these Penaracer Gravel King SK tyres, there is a ton of clearance. Another brilliant addition is the SRAM click shifter, and I have mine residing beneath the handlebar close to the stem. I can access the shifting function very easily with my thumb either side of the bike, and just like the shift pedals, they work in the same manner with a nice positive click. And depending how your shifting is configured, the right side will send you to a harder gear, the left side to an easier gear. And with the front derailleur, both buttons at once to effect the front derailleur shift. The matching force crankset is pure magic with its 4330 chain rings, and paired to the 10-36 cassette, you could climb virtually a telephone pole, and even with the 10-33 cassette, you can get up many steep grades. SRAM really have done their homework with gearing, because 43 by 10 is a very large gear. If you took this bike to a very spirited roadie group ride when COVID isn't present, you could hang no worries at all with gearing of this size. The SRAM Force eTap AXS wide rear derailleur features SRAM's Orbit fluid damper chain management technology, which is akin to a liquid clutch. It is always active, there is zero drag of any kind, and there is zero slapping of the chain on the bike at any time. Shifting is flawless, and this being wide, the drivetrain shifts beautifully up to a 36-tooth cog. I will say the drivetrain is a little bit noisy, but I think that's a side effect of SRAM's one-piece cassette design, which some people might gripe about because they aren't exactly cheap, but if you keep an eye on your chain wear, I expect this cassette is going to last a long time. On to brakes. SRAM relies on DOT fluid just like most automobiles, and because DOT fluid handles better the ingress over time of water entering the system, I suspect this is the primary reason SRAM went in this direction. There isn't a higher pivot point for the brake levers like some rivals brake systems, but these levers offer a ton of power and modulation from the hoods or the drops, and once bled properly, these brakes feel exactly like a well-dialed rim brake with pads close to the rim. There's no vague feeling of waiting for the pad to hit the rotor, just brake and more power as you pull the lever closer to the handlebar. The calipers themselves aren't the hottest item visually, but they look good with most bikes, and more importantly, they are pretty impervious to bad weather and sludgy conditions. I also broke the rule book and ran these calipers with several brands of rotors. All of them worked very well, no complaints. That said, I think you're better off running SRAM's Centerline XR or Paceline rotor. They complement the group set well, and I love the aesthetics of the Centerline XR rotor. Overall, I'm super stoked to see that SRAM has gone beyond the realms of one buy to create a super versatile and flexible 2x system to conquer virtually any terrain you can ride. This group set covers just about every subset you can think of that relates to gravel cycling, mixed surface cycling, whatever you want to call it. General riding around, bike packing, racing, having an adventure with your friends for the day, it doesn't matter. This group set can do all of that. It is extremely reliable, durable, and simply gets the job done. And it saves a lot of energy in the process. And if you think that energy saving with shifting gears is a joke, well, you think about, for example, a really cold day where, say, it's 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 Celsius, and some gear systems, mechanical for example, require that motion if you're using a front derailleur, or that motion, for example, if you're shifting up to a smaller gear on a rear derailleur. That motion can often be difficult if you're experiencing a lack of dexterity due to the cold weather. So pushing a paddle button saves a lot of energy over the long haul. Another huge advantage of this system can apply to folks who ride travel bikes, the sort of bike that breaks in half and goes into a special suitcase. There's no cables to worry about, no wires to disconnect, etc. This system would also be fantastic for anybody who rides a tandem. There's no extra long cables to worry about, just worry-free wireless shifting performance. And there's no worries about cross-contamination of shifting signals with SRAM eTap. This system is very well proven in the world of professional road cycling, and you know how close those folks ride together. So there you have it, my long-term review of SRAM's eTap AXS Force wide electronic drivetrain with hydraulic disc brakes. I realise nowadays there are many group sets available on the market for consideration for you to purchase for your gravel bike, so I hope that my review went some way into helping you make an informed purchase decision. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Gravel Cyclist YouTube channel, and don't forget to click the bell button to be notified of future videos as they appear on the channel. That little notification bell tells you videos such as this one, product reviews, bike reviews, ride experience videos, and other madness are ready for your viewing. I'll see you in the next video.